Terms of reference of the tribunal not to be widened on the advice of its chairman. Michael Lowry details the manner in which he received payments from Dunnes Stores. Danny McNamee, convicted of the Hyde Park bombing 15 years ago, wins the right to appeal. Good evening and welcome. The Taoiseach Bertie Ahern has had his first meeting since taking office with the British Prime Minister Tony Blair. They met for an hour and a half this afternoon at 10 Downing Street, accompanied by the Minister for Foreign Affairs and by the Northern Secretary. Next Sunday's Orange March at Drumcree is thought to have been high on the agenda. Afterwards, Mr Ahern rejected criticism of his statement that the march shouldn't be forced down the Garvaghey Road.
Bertie Ahern would have preferred not to have this meeting dominated by Drumcree, but given its proximity, he was also anxious to stress that problems of the marching season would have to be resolved locally through dialogue. There was no expectation that this meeting could resolve those problems, but the Taoiseach remained adamant that he doesn't want to see Sunday's march forced down the Garvaghey Road. But after the Downing Street meeting, he told journalists he acknowledges that the ultimate decision on the routing of the march is a matter for the British government, and he took this opportunity to place on record his strong support for the Secretary of State in her efforts to resolve the difficulties. But does the Taoiseach accept that his view that Sunday's march should not be forced down the Garvaghey Road has heightened tensions?
No, I do not, because I think if I was to say anything else other than that we would not be prepared to see what happened the last 2 years, where nationalists were treated in the way that they were, would be something I think that would have shocked British sources or union sources.
You understandably are painting a very positive view of your meeting today, and yet British sources are saying after that meeting that no agreement was reached between you and Drumcree. Is there in fact disagreement between you?
No, the Prime Minister made it absolutely clear. And I didn't ask him for agreement on Drumcree, because that is a matter, as I said in Belfast the other day, it was a matter for the Secretary of State, and I reiterate that now. But I think what the Prime Minister stated was that there are further meetings and they will continue to try to find a means of dialogue. They do not know whether that is achievable or not, and then they will make the decision based on those communications. But there is no decision made at this stage.
If there is a decision taken by Mo Mowlam and the Chief Constable of the RUC, what will your attitude be if that decision is to allow the march to go ahead? Will you call on the British Prime Minister to intervene and stop it?
I would hope that in consideration of what will finally be done, if there cannot be accommodation and dialogue, that the British government would know that we would not want to be going down the same road as we did in the last 2 years.
In Northern Ireland, the Church of Ireland Primate has said an accommodation on Drumcree is still possible. In a statement, Dr Eames called on both sides in the conflict to pull back from the brink. Tonight, the branch of the Orange Order directly involved in the Drumcree service said it was its deepest desire to avoid a repetition of what it called the terrible scenes of the last 2 years. And a security summit involving the Northern Secretary and the RUC Chief Constable is tonight considering the options for Sunday's march.
For the last 2 years, the scenes at Drumcree have been a deep embarrassment to many in the Church of Ireland, who have seen the imposing country churchyard come to symbolise the chaos of the North's marching season. Dr Eames is one of the figures who's been working tirelessly behind the scenes to make sure that doesn't happen again, and today he had this plea to both sides.
There is still time for accommodation. There's still time to pull back from the brink. And what I'm saying to both parties is, look, think of the consequences of last year. Think of what it did between neighbours. Think of what it did within families. Think of what it did for community relations. And if you have the good of this society at heart, in God's name, pull back and think of the consequences of your actions.
Despite the tight timescale, a solution still could be found.
It's going to take a lot of courage. It's going to take a lot of vision by both sides. But I believe in my heart that we can still avoid what happened last year.
And tonight, the Orange Order in County Armagh said avoiding a repetition of last year's scenes was their deepest desire. The County Grand Lodge said they had moved significantly towards accommodating the demands of locals in limiting marchers and bands this year, but that the Garvaghey Road residents had not reciprocated.
I think that they really have to look at the overall package here, and they have to appreciate how much the Orange Order has moved. 10 parades down to 1. accordion bands only, playing hymn tunes, no music at all along certain stretches of the road, a willingness to walk six abreast. I don't think that the Orange Order can justly be accused of intransigence. It comes from another direction.
But in Drumcree today, the midsummer tranquility belied the palpable tension in the area. Half a mile away on the Garvaghey Road itself, residents were preparing for the weekend street festival, timed to coincide with Sunday's Orange March. Dr. Ian's plea comes amid intensive behind-the-scenes efforts to broker a last-minute solution. But the die may well be cast at a top-level security meeting tonight to be attended by the Chief Constable and the Secretary of State. Once that decision is made, only time will tell whether this quiet little corner of County Armagh is to witness a third year of disorder.